Hello, everyone. Janelle here, your go to relationship coach. Today, I have my friend Beth Miller. She's also just as passionate about marriage and love and healing and all of those beautiful things. Beth, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sounds great. Janelle, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited for this conversation. So,
Yeah.
for anyone who hasn't met me before, I am Beth Miller and I am a marriage coach. And I primarily help women, in particular wives who have been betrayed by their husbands. So, infidelity is massive, right? About 23% of women are impacted by their husband's cheating. And if you were to look at 4 women, like one has experienced this at some time in their life. So, like I said, I am a marriage saver coach, but my I guess the foundation of what I do is rooted in hypnosis. So we'll talk a little bit about how hypnosis helps save marriages. Typically, people don't put that together. Hypnosis saving marriages. Usually, it's couples counseling, and going to couples counseling that'll help people save marriages. So we'll talk a little bit about that later.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Thanks, Beth. Beth and I met, I guess, a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, I should say. I haven't been in a month. And we, really bonded on our passion for healing of marriages and saving marriages, if at all possible, especially in the realm of, people with families. I don't know about you, Beth, but a lot of couples that come to see me, it's a lot of times it's motivated by their children to stay together. And I'm curious, do you work mostly with women that are looking to save the marriage, or is it more just healing whatever that looks like, whether they're planning to, stay or to go?
Good question. I always ask someone when I meet them, scale of 1 to 10, 10, do you want to save your marriage? You can't pick 5. You can pick 4.5, 5.5.
Mm.
And everyone who comes to me, for the most part, wants to save their marriage a little bit. Whether they're even a 3 out of 10, they come to me still wanting it. They know that they're not ready for divorce yet. They still have a little try in them. And a lot of it is, like you said, kids. They want to be able to look their kids in the eye and be like, you know what? I did everything I could to try and keep your dad and I together. And a lot of women do say, kind of to your point, if we didn't have kids, I'd be gone. But in some ways, infidelity can really make a marriage stronger. And again, not every case, you got to really study each one. But yeah, most women come to me because they want to save their marriage. They want to give it a try, even if they're kind of on the fence.
Yeah, I would say the same thing for me as well. I think, I don't know about you, but I look at these crushing, devastating, tragic moments as opportunities. I look at it from, I think, a spiritual lens a lot of the time. And even in my own life, I have experienced infidelity both as a child with my father cheating on my mom, and then also as an adult. And, I remember thinking to myself, like, why me? Why did these terrible things happen to me? Did I do something to deserve that? Am I not good enough? Especially as a child, watching your dad leave at 9 years old, like it really messed with my head. And I didn't even realize it until I became an adult, how much that moment of my dad leaving made such a huge difference. But, standing where I'm standing now and standing for marriages, standing for reconciliation and love and forgiveness at the end of the day, um, I really see these moments as opportunities for our soul to grow, for our mind to grow, rather than looking at as almost as a victim, which is so easy to do. Right? And so I think this is why these conversations are so important because it's easy to blame. It's easy to complain. It's easy to point the finger over there. But the real juice, like I believe why these things sometimes happen is there's something for us. Like it's a mirror for us to reflect on the parts of us that need to heal in order to be at peace, not only with ourselves, but with the people around us. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I agree. I believe everything that comes to us, whether it's crisis in relationship, wealth, health, sometimes we have to hit this rock bottom, what we might call this massive, what seems like Mount Everest obstacle, opportunity. Some people call it a test, but I like the word opportunity obstacle. We have to hit that rock bottom to really, really look within to be like, all right, I need to find myself. So it is this massive pain. When you're on the other side of it, you can look back and be like, wow, there's a lot of gifts in that. I see what came from it. And often it's like finding your self worth. It's finding a different, not identity, but you're like, you know what? I am lovable. I am enough. I can be heard and seen. I can set better boundaries. And sometimes what happens from this is you're able to turn your pain into purpose. Because a lot of times you're like you just said, like, why me as a 9-year-old child or even later in adult life when it was happening? Like, why does it happen to me? And so often we're like, okay, was I not a good enough wife? Did I not clean well enough? Did I not meet his needs? I was feeling depression, anxiety, focusing too much on the children. Was this me? Did I cause him to do this? And my number one out there is no, you did not cause it. He could have communicated to you. However, he didn't. And so then we start to unpack it from there, like maybe why he did it, but how this is not you. You did not cause this. Maybe there's contributing factors, but it's not your fault.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I don't think it's anyone's fault. Like, if I'm really honest with you, there's been moments in my life that I've done some things that I haven't been proud of. And it wasn't from a place of wanting to hurt anyone, but it was just from a place of needing to feel seen and loved and appreciated and safe.
I think that's a really good point because a lot of times women, understandably so, like he's hurt you so bad. Like it's like crushing. It's almost worse than a death because when someone dies, often it's predictable. Like they have cancer, it's sad, it's horrible.
Mm.
Even a sudden car accident, it makes sense. Like the car had a crash, the person died. But when it comes to infidelity, it's such a mess of the mind with trickle truths and not fully understanding the details. It messes with who you are. You're like, who am I? Who is he? What is our marriage? Everything feels like it's a lie. The foundation of what you thought your life was crushed. And so when you can start to look at it and be like, you know what, he didn't do this to hurt me on purpose. He was hurting. And it's a really hard pill to swallow because you're like, if I'm hurting, he should be doing everything he can to make me not hurt anymore. But he's hurting and he needs to find, like you said, reasons why he didn't feel safe, why he sought out validation elsewhere, when it would have been so easy to go to you, the wife, but he didn't. And so it's having this empathy for him as a human as well. Man, it's one of the hardest things you can possibly go through. It is, oh my goodness.
It's just a mine F, right? Yeah. So Beth, I work mostly with men. So I'm dealing often with the, if you want to call, what do you want to call him? Perpetrator?
I
What's
call betrayal, like the one person who betrayed, the betrayer and cheater.
Yeah. And I find that men, you know what? I got a soft spot for guys. Like I don't, I used to think the same thing. Like men are liars, they're cheaters, they're selfish, they don't care, all those things. And doing the work that I've done, I've done a complete 180, and they're so sensitive. They're so afraid of being alone. The guilt and the shame that they experience going through this, like, they're in such a dark place that they cannot believe what they did, and then more importantly, the impact. A lot of times guys will come on a call with me, and within 5 seconds, they're in tears. And they're just like, "Janelle, I'm all alone. My wife left me. She took the kids. I'm in this empty house. I have like no one to talk to. I feel like a bag of poo. I can't believe I did this. And I have ruined my family, and it's all my fault. And there's nothing I can do about it." And it's the desperation and the pain that they feel is, I would even say, even more intense than a lot of the women that I've met. I feel like women are so strong. Like, I don't think we give ourselves credit for the stuff that we do. But to be honest, like when we talk about self-worth and feeling not enough, men experience that so deeply. They just don't have sometimes the vocabulary or the ability, or they have an idea that vulnerability is weakness.
For sure. Yeah, it's easier to be angry. I find a lot of men, they might be feeling that in the inside, even though they might not even know that it's that insecurity, that unsafe, not feeling validated, not feel respected, not feeling appreciated. It comes across as anger because anger is a strong, powerful emotion. But anger is a secondary emotion. Below that anger is often that sadness, that weakness. And it's a very difficult thing a lot of times for men to do because we look at the history of masculinity, femininity, and a lot of times if you haven't witnessed that in your own house, men talking about their feelings, even sometimes mothers talking about their feelings, like emotional intelligence, really, I feel like it's only been the last decade or 2 decades, really truly coming to the forefront. And so it is, I'm trying to teach my kids every day, my boys, I'm like, how do you feel? How does that make you feel? Like, we're always talking about our feelings. Like, it's so important to understand, like, where in your body you're feeling it. Are you feeling it in your stomach, your chest? Does it feel like your mind's going to blow up? And so, somatically feeling it, but then also, can you name the feeling? And you don't have to name it, but there are great tools out there. Just Google emotion wheel, and you can get like little emotion wheels that have, like, say, 20 emotions on it. You could get really complex ones that have, I don't know, up to 50 emotions on it. So, anyway, I've kind of digressed and gone sideways with emotions, but it is really true, like, and, like, the key is, like, I feel something I don't like to feel in my body. Do you need to name it? You don't have to label the feeling, but knowing that something in your body doesn't feel as good as you want it to feel.
Yeah. Well, what you said earlier about rock bottom really, spoke to me because I think, whether we're men or women, we often get in this caught in this like, I'm fine, it's okay, don't look over here, like in denial. Like we're pretending, we're tolerating, we're avoiding, we're resisting. And, I've done that many times because I've kind of been brought up to be like, you're okay, everything's gonna be fine, keep a smile on your face, don't let anyone see. And then to your point, like sometimes we need to hit that rock bottom to get really honest with ourselves and authentic about where we are because only we can only heal what we can feel, right? And I think even for me, it hurts. It's like I don't want to feel this way, but we kind of have to go through it and experience it before we can let it go. It just said,
That's Instagram worthy. Yeah. You can only heal what you can feel. I think that's well said. I really do. I think that's great. So, yeah, I think when it comes to feelings, that's the jumping off point. I always say when it comes to this, the number one thing is I'm triggered. But then what's the activated emotion? So triggers activated emotion. Triggers can be positive things. It can be, you know what? I'm Christmas morning. You're triggered to feel joy, but it can also be undesirable. So the key thing here is to look at the undesirable emotions. We never think of positive things as triggers, but someone that you didn't like wasn't expected to come over shows up at the door. You're like, wow, you're here. That's triggering an excited emotion in your body. But so triggers that are undesirable emotions that are activated are the jumping off points. I call them gifts even though they don't feel like gifts because 'cause they're really ugly, like, I don't want to feel embarrassed, I don't wanna feel guilt, shame, yet that feeling is like, "Here, you have to unpack this."
So how do you because guilt is a really great topic because I feel like that's this vicious cycle, especially us Catholics, where we get caught in these guilt cycles and it's like we feel guilty about feeling guilty and we feel guilty about feeling guilty and then we can never escape it. How do you work with people to distinguish that unworkability and then pull them out of that?
Yeah, great question. So, let's give an example here. I feel guilty because I yelled at my husband. So I have some clients where they're trying so hard. They're like using their mental power, which we can talk about subconscious. Like I think willpower is only so good until you're exhausted and weak. So like going to traditional therapy where they're like, just be calm, take some breaths. You could have a good conversation with your husband. But until the moment you're exhausted or he's triggering you, you lose all that. So that's why we have to go into subconscious pain. But willpower only gets you so far. So anyways, you say you have an argument with your husband, you blow up at him, you say, I hate you, leave, I don't want you here, you're the worst person ever. And then you calm down later, and then you're filled with guilt and remorse and shame because you're like, you know what, maybe I'm going to push him away. Maybe he's actually going to leave and not come back. Maybe that's the end of our marriage. What did I just do? And so we have to look at that guilt. And I usually use several statements. So I feel guilty because. So start with anything like I feel angry, I feel sad, I feel blah, 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 because. And then you list it out, but you use I statements. So I feel guilty because it means I am not enough. It means I am stupid for yelling at him. It means I'm a fool for thinking that I should have yelled at him. It means I am not in control like I thought I was. So it's really important to make these I am not statements because those are our belief statements that our subconscious is operating from. So we can talk a little bit about that, but we want to operate from our belief statements when we're doing our healing.
Yeah. And so once they do that, is that exercise then I'm assuming is to just get clarity as to where they're at so that they know what is that they're blocked by so that they can release it? And if so, what is that? Okay, now that they've done that, they see it, they're like, oh yeah, here are my beliefs.
Yeah, this. This is exactly what we do. It's like if you can imagine we have memories of our husband doing like, yeah, reading the text messages, images that we created because we think in stories. So you created these images, created these text messages. And so from the memories, we create these beliefs. I'm not loved. He's a cheater. I can't trust him. I'm not in control. So you have all these beliefs. They're usually I statements. I am not. I can, I can't, I will, I won't, I do, I don't. So if you can figure out what your I statements are, typically that's your beliefs. So these memories create beliefs. Christmas, amazing memory. It means I am going to see my family. It means I am going to feel joy. So anyway, we have these I statements, and that's in the subconscious. All our programming comes from our I statements. That's the program you operate from. For example, like I should get married before I have children. So then if you had children at a wedlock, there's Catholic, right? You feel really guilty. So what happens is we have these belief statements. I should get married before I have children, then leads to emotion of guilt or anger or whatever it might be, which is a neurochemical in your body. Your feelings are your feelings. So when you say to someone, you made me feel mad, you made me feel sad, it's actually, yes, that action triggered an emotion in your body. That's the neurochemical in your body, or hormone, cortisol, or dopamine, lovely dopamine, or serotonin, or bonding, oxytocin. So we have these beliefs. And then what happens is they activate emotions in our body, which then produce the action, such as yelling at someone, because all of a sudden you feel mad at him. He's like, he doesn't hear me. I'm not heard as the belief statement. Creates the emotion of anger, which creates the outburst of yelling at him. Or for some women, they don't say anything, and that's the action that happens. So really, when you go to therapy, they start at the bottom. They're like, what did you say? What did you do? You're like, I yelled at him. And then they try and heal it upwards. I want to start at the top and be like, what's your subconscious programming? Because we can just change it to I'm in control regardless of how he talks to me or regardless of his actions. I am in control of the situation. That's where real change happens in a relationship and within yourself.
Oh my gosh, you said so much stuff there. Like, whoo, where do we even go from there? Um, there was something you said earlier. So how about, one of the things that I see, and I'm sure you too, especially you, is like, I'm assuming, is, around guilt of like you make this commitment to a promise to yourself, like, okay, this is the boundary you don't cross. Infidelity, right? That is the drawn line. And if that happens, we're done. Right. We make these huge statements. And then when it happens, we're like, okay, I'm done, but you're not really done. Right? Like there's a part of you that's like, no, 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 I love this person and we have kids and we have a house and we have all these things. And I don't want that. But then it's almost like they feel like they're betraying themselves. And so there's that piece of the guilt. And then right? And so I feel like that's like it's kind of like they're like straddling the fence and this fence is like it hurts. But it's like, the morality piece of it, but then there's the emotional piece of it, and then there's the responsible obligatory piece of it as parents. I mean, I can't imagine like I don't have kids, so I don't know what that would be like, but that's a lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot of emotions mixed.
it is a lot, and you nailed it, you really did, and so what I like to do is I like to call in what we call internal family systems. So it's like Janelle, you have the Janelle that's the mom. She's like, "We can't break up the family. I'm gonna destroy the family. The kids are gonna be in therapy forever and become drug dealers and become worst case scenario." And then there's the other part of you, the teenage Janelle that's like, "You know what?" Or maybe the childhood you who saw your dad walk out on your mom, and it's like, "You don't let a man treat you this way." But then there's also the guilty you that's like, "You know what? You contributed to the breakdown of the marriage too." So and then there's the sad you being like, "I really want him. I'm grieving him." So it's like you have all these little Janelles in you. So we call it internal family system. And so it's kind of getting your team in alignment, being like, who's going to be at the control panel? Oh yeah, like if you've seen the movie Inside Out, it's like who's at the control panel? It's like anger on, guilt on. But what we want to do is find your true self to be like, that's your intuition. But with infidelity, your intuition gets squashed. She's like, "Where are you?" You hear her, but there's so many lies that you're like, "I don't know if she's right or not." But when you pull out intuition, she'll guide you. She'll tell you what to do. And part of that might be like, "You know what? as a child or as a teenager, young adult, I had this belief that if he cheats on me, I'm gone. Once a cheater, always a cheater. And what
Mhm.
we have to do is we have to overcome that belief, being like, you know what? Do I want to operate by that belief anymore? I can see him as maybe sick. I can see that he lost his father and his way of coping was very unhealthy and he started texting women online. I'm seeing him as a human, not just this evil person who cheated on me. I
Right.
see our many years together. I see him as a good father. I see him in these many lenses. I see his parts. I see the guilty him, I see the broken him, but I also see the good father him. And so it's like we have to widen our scope of who is our partner, who are we, and be like, we have retirement plans. We have been saving money. We have plans. And I don't want to throw that out the window. This is a blip in our chapter of our marriage. And I want to close that chapter and move on to the next. Or I want to entertain the idea of it.
Yeah, yeah. That was so good. So, as I'm listening to you, I'm really thinking about, how important, like, yes, we want to heal the marriage, but the first piece that we need to address is healing ourselves. I have a lot of clients that says, I don't know if I can trust him, right? Or I don't know if I can forgive him. And oftentimes what there is really we can't trust ourselves. Right? Gets us like, "Oh, I was in love with this person and they betrayed me, so what if they betray me again?" And so that trust is broken, and so no matter what he does, even if he's like a saint, it doesn't matter because everything is looked at the lens of, how, is this real? Is this you right? Is this gonna happen again? And not I know for myself when I was going through that is like not wanting to be made a fool. Right? And then the forgiveness piece, same thing when people say, "I wanna forgive, but I can't." And oftentimes I ask, "Okay, well, let's just, turn things around a little bit. Is there anything that you feel like you need to forgive yourself for? Do you blame yourself in any way?" And oftentimes they don't even think about that because 'cause they're so focused outwardly as to what's going on over there that even if they are having an, introspective moment, it kinda gets pushed away because it's like, "No, no, 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 let's not focus on that. Let's focus on what he did," you know? But for me, when people actually take the time to really go, "Okay, is this triggering" again, for me, "Is this triggering how much of this is actually to do with him, and how much of this is actually triggering something over here with me that is reminding me of something else that happened to me in the past with a different either with my parents or someone else in my life that I loved."
Yeah, if anyone's listening, they might want to slap me over this one, but I think everything is happening for us, not to us. But just to go back to your point there, you've made some really good statements there. And I think, again, it's about bringing it down to the belief. The belief is, I can't trust him. So sometimes we have these, like what I call bridge beliefs. It's like, I can't trust him. However, I choose to trust him today. So when we say, I choose to
Mm,
trust him today, your brain's like, huh. But it's like, I choose to trust him. Like, I don't know what he's going to do in a week, a month, a year. So
yeah.
I choose to trust them today. When we make the belief smaller, we'll then from there create more thoughts of like, okay, I see his phone's there. He's coming home on time. And so it soothes you. And then what happens is you have better emotions, which create better actions, which could be intimacy and communication. So we want to make these little beliefs like,
Yeah.
I can trust myself to trust him today. Because, like you said, I agree with you. You have to trust yourself that it's safe to trust him. You have to forgive yourself for any not always, you might like, if you don't think it has a thing to do with you, then you've probably already forgiven yourself because there's nothing to forgive. But if you feel like you played a role in this, then it might be, I forgive myself. I did the best I could. So maybe that's the belief. I did the best I could with the things I knew at the time. And then what happens when you have that belief, it creates better thoughts, creates better emotions, like that top-down approach. Because like
Mhm.
I said, the I statements are running the computer. And so that's where hypnosis comes in place when we start to kind of rework some of those I statements. But it's really important. I think trust and forgiveness are last. You want them to be first. So you're like, I don't want to trust him. But you have to do the healing on the front end, which is the trauma, the betrayal trauma you've been through, the images, the memories that you're seeing, those are what we have to get to first 'cause if not, it's you're gonna be looping those versus and which won't allow you to trust because 'cause you're like, "I could see all the times I couldn't trust him."
Yeah. And, it's so interesting. I don't know if this started during COVID or if this is like a social media phenomenon, but, back in the day, 20, 30, 40 years ago, infidelity was very black and white, right? And now with social media, it's like he cheated on me. It's like, okay, what did he do? Well, he was talking to a girl. Or, he had pictures of women on his phone. And so I feel like the definition or the scope of infidelity has changed a lot. And sometimes, there's moments where I'm like, is that infidelity? Like, but to them, it's like, it's almost like as though they went and physically cheated. What are your thoughts about that?
Whoa, 2 things there, like, yeah, is infidelity more prevalent right now? Like, is it like, do we see it more often? I think social media has opened up, like, a whole, like, hidden world where you can have text conversations with women across the world. It's not just your neighbor, the person you work with.
Right.
Although I do find a lot of infidelity is with people you know in your community and coworkers. That is very common. Um, so it definitely is opened up way more, which is really scary because then there's apps upon apps that you can download. And so that makes women go crazy too because they're like, what app are they using to delete that one? I think
Right.
you have Instagram. So yeah, definitely. And then what was your second point there? I forget what you said. Sorry, I lost that thought. Um, anyway, yeah,
Oh, no, just but the physical, emotional, and
oh, yeah, yeah. I think here's the thing. If you felt betrayal, I don't want you to try and compare your story, judge your story. Betrayal is betrayal. It hurts, whether it was someone who's endured 5 years of it, or whether it was a one night stand, or if it's a husband that was texting flirty messages with his coworker. Betrayal is betrayal. And you know what? It hits hard and it messes with everyone's mind. And uh, yeah, it's out there in so many different ways, emotional, physical, or both for many different times, and also in person, online. So
mm,
no judgment.
yeah, it's interesting, talking to men about this. To them, it's like a lot of them, it's like, well, it's just harmless. It's almost like they're living in a fantasy. So they don't see the consequences. They don't see the implication. They don't see it as necessarily negative. Kind of like porn, right? It's like you're watching other people have sex, but I'm not having sex, so there's nothing wrong I'm doing. I'm just viewing something. Right? But even that, a lot of women will find as betrayal, men watching porn, because then they feel like that's reflected on them and their, you know, inadequacy perhaps. I don't know. But yeah, I think that the last few years, especially since COVID, I've seen a huge influx of those kind of breakdowns in relationships from something so seemingly innocent from their point of view and then totally blows up in their face, or maybe it progresses in a way that they don't expect and then completely, destroys their marriage when that was not the intent. They were just kind of lonely and wanted someone to talk to, or, hadn't had sex in 10 years and was just kind of, sure. Like to them, it was innocent. And next thing they know, it blows everything up. And so, yeah, it's just been really interesting to watch that transition inside of marriages, and I'm curious to find out how the divorce rates have changed. Or
Yeah, there hasn't been a massive change. Like, I know I was doing a lot of research after the pandemic to be like, it must have been like you're living with someone you didn't even like for like multiple quarters, but it didn't drastically change the rate like we thought we would. But mental health has, like, there's more people struggling with mental health, which then they seek out unhealthy behaviors, whether it's drinking, gambling, shopping, porn, infidelity. And so I think that a lot of things are on the increase because people are looking to unhealthy coping skills to yeah, to try and fill a void of pain or hurt or numb that pain or hurt.
Mhm. Then there's the other side, like, so I'm Filipino, and in my culture, infidelity in the old like, back home, not so much here, maybe a little bit here, but back home, it was completely normal to happen.
Oh, it's normal. Yeah, normal to have mistress.
And the wives have completely, like, okay with it because that's just culturally how it's been, and so there were times when you would have your wife and then you would have children from your mistress, and it not that it was necessarily accepted, but it was kind of accepted, like, it wouldn't necessarily break down a family is, I guess, my point.
Yeah, so it's all about the narrative we tell ourselves, and we all tell like, a husband who's doing that, it's like, "This is fine, this is okay, my wife agrees with it," or I don't know what the narrative would be, back home for you.
The narrative is, it's just sex, it's not like I love her.
Yes. Well, I find often like coworkers, like a man never seeks out to often cheat on his wife. Sometimes, but often it starts off with a coworker and you're just talking about similar problems. Maybe she's struggling with her husband and you're struggling as well. And what happens is it just turns into this like conversation. You're like, all of a sudden you feel heard and you could go talk to your wife, but all of a sudden on a different level, she really understands you. And it starts with these flirty messages. And so the narrative is like, she understands me. We're just having conversations. But then what happens is the narrative evolves and it turns into like, sorry, the actions evolve, but maybe the narrative stays the same as like, she's just helping me out, or we're just debriefing life and how to overcome these struggles with our partners. And so it's the narrative. And so he may stick with that narrative, although the actions increase to sexual or completely inappropriate flirty messages. It's like she's just my coworker. We're just talking.
Yeah. Oh, you know, so here's my question to you. What do you think is gonna make the difference? Like, what do you think is missing in the world that if we were to really, like, focus on this side of the healing would honestly save generational trauma and generational trauma for the most part in these situations,
I think the key is
and ending just the whole cycle of divorced parents.
yeah, I work with a ton of clients who are ending that cycle right now, and it starts with awareness being like, "I don't wanna be my parents anymore. I don't wanna be that story anymore." So it just starts with the awareness of I can see. It's like you open your eyes, you're like, "Whoa, I can see how I'm not communicating with my partner, just like my parents didn't communicate together. I can see that I don't know how to even give my husband a hug or a kiss when he leaves because I never witnessed that." Like, I'm not saying like, what are you witnessing? So this is a really good exercise. It's like, what did I witness love to be in my parents' relationship? If you even had parents together,
Exactly.
how did you witness love? How did you witness a man treating a woman or a woman treating a man? Was your mom resentful? Was your sorry, was your dad disconnected or was your dad doing everything and your mom was busy working? Like, it's like, what did you witness? And then am I doing those same patterns? And so it's awareness. It's really like, what do you see? And then deciding, okay, I'm going to dig into this and make sure I don't do it too, which comes from that subconscious. Because, like I said, remember memories create our beliefs. So if the memory is, um, yeah, like a woman needs to apologize to a man before things get better, and the belief is a woman needs to own it, and then like the husband will then love her the way she needs to again. And so you just gotta look at your beliefs, but they come from memories and you don't even realize our computers are operating under certain beliefs from childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think what's missing in so many marriages is friendship.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. The foundation has to be friendship. That's the beginning of emotional intimacy. So it's so important. I'm so glad you brought that up. Absolutely. Has to start. I agree. 100%.
Yeah, I when I meet with couples, because I do mostly couple work, I often ask them how they met, and a lot of times they got married really, really fast because maybe they met later in life, or they got pregnant, so they felt the right thing to do was get married. But oftentimes they skip that really important piece of building that solid, strong foundation. And when I look at Mike and I, my husband and I, we've been together for 20 years. We rarely, I can count on one hand how many times we've gotten in arguments in 20 years. But I think part of it is because we respect each other so much. And I think that is in place because we spent probably 3 years as friends before we got into a relationship. Now, obviously, not every couple gets that opportunity to really, start as friends and then move into lovers later. But when I look at most couples and why there's a breakdown, oftentimes we fall in love with the idea, with the potential that we see in someone or the promise that they make us rather than judging them by their actions. And then we set expectations because maybe we watch way too many Disney movies or whatever. We have these expectations of how perfect things should be, how perfect they should be, how they should be able to read our minds and just know what we want without communicating that. And then that's when for me, that's when the breakdown happens is when there's unmet expectations, but they've never been communicated. And so there's a lot of assumptions, and with assumptions come disappointment. And so, when I went to see a personal trainer and I told him what I did for a living. And he said to me, "What's one piece of advice that you would have for me and my girlfriend?" And I said, "Don't have expectations." And he looked at me. He's like, "What do you mean? How can you have a relationship without expectation?" But I think part of it is being present, because expectations comes from the past of either another relationship or an occurrence from the past, and you're not actually dealing with this immediate moment with the person in front of you and what they're saying and what you're thinking. And so for me, my husband and I, again, been together 20 years. He makes coffee every single morning, but I don't expect it. Because if I expected it and one day there isn't coffee, which happens sometimes, I'm going to get upset. But we never made the agreement that, hey, you are doing coffee. I expect coffee every morning by 9 a.m. There was no conversation like that. But because I don't have that expectation, when I see the coffee, I'm delighted, right? It's like a bonus. But I think when we have, and I think that that also works with ourselves. Like when we put expectations on ourselves, it gets really heavy, and then it kinda starts to mess with our head, and I think that's when we start to get stressed out and frustrated and overwhelmed. So for me, like, my practice, and one thing I know I need to work on, is being present, because 'cause I'm either thinking about what happened and how I could have made that better, or I'm planning for the future, and, and which is great, but I think the hardest thing is being still, self-aware, conscious in this moment with the people that we're with. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and how do you get there? So, again, I would go back to take 2 things.
Yeah.
I find working on communication comes after self-healing. It's good because when you
Yes.
live with your husband and he's betrayed you, it's actually really good because 'cause you're constantly triggered. So I'm like, "Oh, there's another gift." But then the gifts become too overwhelming and you're like, "I can't handle this." So anyway, we wanna do the subconscious work, and often it comes maybe from why you have those expectations. But I also when you're talking about communication, which is like the second half, which comes with trust and forgiveness in the work I do, curiosity is one of my favorite strategies. So you talk about copy, and it's something like, "Is everything okay? I see you didn't make coffee this morning. So tell me more. What's going on?" Like it's getting curious. It's not like you didn't make me coffee. It's just, hey, asking a simple question, like, tell me more. And empathy too. Like, I understand. Like it's simple statements. Like you don't have to agree with someone, but it's just echoing back what they said. But yeah, those expectations often come from past programming, like women should do this, men should do this. And even though you're like, no, I don't believe it on a conscious level that um women should I'm trying to think of an example. Like women like one I had too is my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so I did think that my husband should make more money than me is a belief that I had. And so for a while there, I was a bit resentful being like, you know what, he's not making more than me. But sometimes what happened was I realized I'm in a position where freedom, family are my core values. And I have a job where I have so much flexibility. It gives me the income where, you know what, we can travel and do things. So like I've manifested that in my life. But at first I had to dig into that belief of how much he makes versus I make like years ago. And I think it's really important to be like those expectations and what you consciously see happening versus subconsciously. It's really, really important to check in with the two. Are they in alignment?
Yeah, and that's so great you mentioned the money piece, because I think that's a huge piece nowadays where women are making more money, and how that affects the power dynamic in the relationship, and also sort of that masculine, feminine, piece of that. And, I have a client who's just left a marriage, and she's looking to date and find her next husband. And that was something that kept coming up. She's like, I like him. He's so great, but he only makes this much money. Right. And it's like, it's less than and she makes about 150 grand a year. And, when we dug under that, it was like, yeah, there's this subconscious belief that making less money, for her, which was really interesting, that he will cheat, because her ex-husband who made less money cheated. So she has it that if he made a lot of money, he would not cheat. If he made less money, he would likely cheat. And then the second thing was around feeling safe, feeling secure, which we all
That's a big
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
you wanna be provided for it. That's also a kind of a if you look historically, men provided for women, right? And it's just another ingrained belief like that. You're talking about generational belief systems that are coming through. So, oh, it's mind blowing when you start to do this work. Be like, where did this from? You might be listening, being like, blah blah blah. This is not exciting. But then when you nail a, oh, can you see? Here you go.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I lose me for a second there?
No.
If you yeah, it's just mind-blowing when you do finally, like, hit these, like, "Wow, that's what I've been thinking for so long," which has been keeping me stuck when I haven't been able to get over that obstacle, like you talked about at the beginning, because of that. So, this inner work is just it's so fun when you go to start the snowball starts going, you're like and you start to see yourself in a different light, and your world starts to change, you're acting differently. In manifestation, like I talked about, like, my core values are really family and freedom, and I've created a job where I can work late at night, I can work early in the morning, I can go on my kids' field trips, and it's just amazing, like, I manifested that through the vibration of myself and the law of attraction, and it's really neat when you clear out these blocks, you vibrate higher in a place of joy, enlightenment versus fear and sadness and guilt, and you're gonna draw in that same light vibration, so it's just a beautiful process of, like, energetics, neuroscience, psychology, it's just I love this work.
Me too. I love it's almost like detective work. I kinda it's like solving putting together a puzzle, and there's all these missing pieces, and being able to finally fit those pieces and being like, "Oh, we weren't missing pieces. We had it all here. We just didn't know how to put it together," you know? And I think at the end of the day, I think sometimes we just have to remember we're all dealing with stuff. And this day and age, I believe there's so much transition and growth and change happening. Like, women are becoming more masculine, more independent, and yet we still want a man to provide for us. And so, again, working with men, I think men are confused. Men don't really know what to do with themselves because before they had this job called protector provider, and now us women are like, "Nope, don't need you. I got my own money. I can drive my own car. I can pay my own bills. I could take you or leave you. Doesn't really matter." And I can even see that in my own relationship with my husband, where, my mom was a very strong woman, pretty much a single mom for half her life with my dad. And, my husband's so wanting to contribute to me, so wanting to be the hero, and me being like, "No, don't need you." And, he's so sweet and so honest and transparent. And he said to me, he goes, "Babe, if you do all these things." So I'm 4'10" and a half, and he's 6'2". And he caught me on the counter with my hand up in on the cabinet. And he's like, "Honey, get down, get down. What are you doing? Like, let me get that for you." And I said, "Babe, it's fine. I'm already up here. I'm okay. Don't worry about it." And he said to me, he goes, "Babe, if I can't get high stuff for you, I can't do these things, then you don't actually need me. Like, what am I here for?" And it actually really dawned on me, like, yeah, they want to feel needed. And so going back to infidelity.
Yeah. It's a big part of it. It absolutely is. They wanna feel needed. They like to fix or they like to help, and if we're not able to do it at home, it can it's not right and it's not okay. Trust me, this is not not
Right.
gonna give a free ticket for what they did, but it's them maybe not understanding that core belief and being able to articulate and communicate it with their way.
Yeah. Oh my God, this conversation's been so great. Thank you, Beth, so much for sharing your wisdom. And I'm like trying to take notes as quickly as possible so I can like soak up all the juice. So good. What if there's anything you want to leave with people who are, especially women who are in it, in the thick of it? What what three things would you what three pieces of wisdom would you want to share with them in this moment?
The biggest one truly is, like, you will be okay. Absolutely, you are enough, you will be okay, you are worthy of love, and those are often the ones I find you lose so quickly when it feels like your world, your life has been shattered. But ultimately, if you can keep reminding yourself and do some of the subconscious work so you can get your safety back, get your self-worth back, and then work on communication, but
Yeah.
you will be okay, you are safe, you are enough.
Amazing. Thank you, Beth. Everyone, Beth, how can people get a hold of you if they want to know more about your work?
Oh, great question. So, yeah, you can look up Beth Miller, Soulify Wellness. Soulify is SOUL, like Soul IFY Wellness. Or we have a great marriage guide called freemarriageguide.com, like all one word, freemarriageguide.com. So you can go to that website as well. I'm on Instagram, at pretty much every social media platform. You can just look up Beth Miller, Solidified Wellness. And you know what? We're happy to chat with you. We do a lot of 15-minute calls, complimentary ones, just to give out advice because we know that we truly believe everyone like should have access to healing, even if you can't financially do it. But we give out a lot of 15-minute calls if anyone wants that too.
Amazing. So yeah, if you're a woman and want some support, Beth is your girl. You got her info. Beth, again, thank you so much for being with us. This is Janelle signing off. Thanks everyone who's been listening. And you know, never forget that you're not alone. And there are people here who love you and can support you, and that let love lead the way. Thanks everyone. Bye for now.